Hi, everybody. We're back today with another episode of Howie's Hometown Heroes, where we feature business owners, entrepreneurs, and community members who are doing extraordinary and amazing things right there in their own community. Today, we're in Middletown, New York, not too far from where we are now, and with my good friend of like 25, 30 years, who knows, Frank De Raffele. He is the executive director of BNI in our Hudson Valley region. Had a bunch of businesses going back to like teenagers, I think, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But let me tell you a little bit about him that you may not realize. He's got two daughters who have gone through school, graduate school, all kinds of stuff, and they're in the medical field, different levels, not quite doctors, but close, but at the highest level that you can be. So we're very proud of them. That's really very cool. And his business philosophy goes back, I want to ask about this, goes back to work, right? Work should provide you the lifestyle that you want. You don't live to work, it's work kind of to live. And the business should provide that. The work should be, you want to work less, make more. Who could argue with that, right? So that's very cool. So thanks for being here today, Frank. This is going to be a lot of fun. Uh-oh. Now you're muted.
Anyway, there you go. Thank you so much. No, I appreciate you being here. Great to see you and great to be with you today. Yeah.
This is going to be a lot of fun. All right. So let's start in the beginning. Well, maybe not the very beginning, but at least near the beginning. So you've been an entrepreneur, business owner, had a bunch of stuff that goes way back. How did that start? What was the epiphany moment or the initiative? Where'd that kind of stuff come from?
I don't think there was, I didn't at first think I was going to be an entrepreneur. I went to college at Syracuse University, and my degree originally was in acting, and then I switched it to television production and the SI Newhouse School in UPA. So I was a speech communications, telecommunications major. So my idea was that I was going to be going into directing, producing television films, things along those lines.
Okay.
While I was at school, I had always wanted to get involved in martial arts, and I got heavily involved in martial arts when I went to Syracuse. And started training and just absolutely loved it. I think I was a little obsessive about it, but I started training kind of like a regular college athlete, but I was training 6 days a week. I was training 5-6 hours a day. It was like my thing. Anyway, I had a great instructor, but he didn't have his own school. He was teaching at the university. He went to the local school in Syracuse, was kind of the home school, if you will. And he told me one day that he wanted one day to have his own school. And I said, well, where'd you want to have it? Whatever. So without him knowing it, I went and did all this research. And I went to this different town he wanted to start it in. I found out how much rent would be there, what it would be, how do you incorporate insurance. I found all these different things that I never knew anything about with business. I just said, if I start a business, what do you do, in terms of starting a martial arts school? So anyway, I put this whole thing together. I guess you consider it a business plan. And I went to him and I said, hey, look, I said, I got this, I got something for you. And I sat down, I said to him, look, here's the school. I went through, it's like, it was like $300 a month to rent the studio. And then it was this and this and this. I laid it all out. You can do this if you have this many students and charge this much. Had the whole thing laid out.
Wow.
And he's just looking at me and he's like, when did you do this? And I said, well, you say you wanted to school and I wanted to, so you could do this, and go. And he's just like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about because I have no idea about business. So why don't we just become partners? And I was like, what? And he just goes, you handle the business end, I'll do the teaching. I was like, okay. So that's how I started my first corporation. Was I owned a martial arts school with him, and I did all the marketing and sales and basically the administrative end of the business, and he taught the classes. And it's a long story what we did. We really got an incredible start, and within a couple of months we had about 100 students, which is outrageous. Wow. But it was marketing we did was pretty amazing. Whole nother longer story, but so anyway, that's how I kind of started my first business. I was doing that. And then when I was in school, I got this other idea with a couple of my buddies who were in the video production, also in Newhouse. And I said, what if we do local television commercials for local places in the area? So we started going around to local businesses in Syracuse, and it was cable television. And I said, we could produce a television commercial for you. You can put it on cable. And I had the pricing together, what it would be to be on cable. We didn't make any money off that, but they gave me like these packages. And we would produce a commercial for like $600 or something like that, And just so you know, we were doing it with university equipment, which was illegal. We were not allowed to use it and do whatever else, but we didn't know, we were just students.
We didn't know that. Yeah, sure.
So we had this kind of side business that we were producing television commercials for local businesses and putting them on cable. And so those are my first kind of two business entrepreneurial ventures. One was a martial arts school and one was a video production company. And then I had worked with a guy who was a television producer in New York City while I was in college over the summers. And then when I got out, I decided I had worked with him. He was a pretty big television producer, just him. I used to work with him, and while I was in college, there were some television shows on ESPN, shows that my names were in the credit. I was a co-producer on them. So when I get out of school, I'm like, well, I'm ready to be Steven Spielberg. Like, I'm not gonna, and I got these offers. I got actually an offer to work at ABC Television Studios, an entry-level position. And I was like, no, again, a whole nother long story for probably a different day, and decided I'm going to start my own business. And my dad got furious at me. He was just like, are you out of your mind? Like, I turned down the job at ABC and he's like, are you crazy? And that was it. I decided, I think I was a little too arrogant, at that time. I know, hard to believe, me arrogant. And I decided I wanted to start my own business. And that's what I did out of school. I started my own business, and I was starting a video production company. I worked like 3 other jobs to support myself while I was losing money at my video production company business. And it took me a couple of years to kind of get it up and running. And then it became very successful. So that was kind of the entrepreneurial bug had bitten me while I was in college. And I didn't really realize it until I was graduating, because I was like, I don't want to go to work for somebody else. That was pretty much it.
Kind of once you sort of get that taste of, I don't want to call it freedom, but making your own decisions and not having somebody else say, if you want to take a day off, no, that's kind of a crazy thing, right? That's right.
Yeah, that's what you just said is very funny. It's one of those things, like, I love the idea of nobody having control of me. I could do what I wanted when I wanted. I was just like, I don't want to go and work for some company and work, 60 hours a week or whatever. Meanwhile, I started my own businesses, and I can tell you the first 3 to 5 years I was out of college, I was working between 100 and 110 hours a week. I was during the day at my business, in the afternoon to the evening as a personal trainer at a health club, teaching martial arts a couple of days a week. So at that point I had achieved my black belt, and then I was bouncing at a bar 4 nights a week. And so I was working every day, every night, but I would keep working really hard to just support myself while I was trying to make my dream happen, my business during the day. And I even had family members call me and just say, when are you going to grow up? You got to stop doing this. You're killing yourself. You're putting yourself in debt. I was like, I'm never going to stop. Doesn't matter if I have to go sell hot dogs. I'm going to keep doing this until I get my business going. And that's what I did. So
and there you go. I mean, that kind of drive comes from, well, let me put it, the drive came from that success at the first martial arts studio. So you saw a little bit of success, and that kind of say, oh, we can do more of this kind of thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Howard. I think there's an old saying, right? Success breeds success. And I think what happens is, and I'm not talking about massive success. It's something you're doing in your life, and all of a sudden you see a little success at it. Then it's like, hey, I can do this. And you do. It could be somebody wanting to lose weight, or somebody like, hey, I lost 5 pounds. I can do this. I can do 6 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever. I can, all those different things. And all of a sudden it drives you more and more, and you realize, hey, you know what? I can do this. It builds that confidence in you, and as you build confidence, it just grows and grows.
That's great. That's great. So would you say that was the learning? Was there, I guess, a bunch of learning experiences along the way? Was that one of them? Like, what kind of other things did you learn about leadership or those kind of things?
I think it was, I was, especially when I was in college, it was kind of, I was learning a lot, but I guess I knew I was learning a lot, but I didn't think of it that I was learning. I was just doing what I had to do. But because I was in college, so it didn't really matter if I made money or not, right? Because it was just like a fun thing to do. Now I got out of college and I'm trying to support myself, right? And now there's stakes on the line, like I got to pay rent and I got to pay for a car, and I'm just like, okay, now what do I do? So it was a whole different level of understanding. So I've been an adamant learner. So I've been, books on tapes, that back then, books. Like if you went to my office, that I've had for years, I had over 600 books in my office that I read, right? And marketing and sales and leadership. And so I love being a sponge and learning more things from people and doing that. And then taking what they learned and I'd apply it to what I had done. And so I developed what I think was what I would call educated street knowledge, right? I pulled a lot from other people, people that I had met who were great people that I talked to, as well as books that I had read, audio books that I had listened to, and applied what they were doing. I said, I did that. Why do it in this way? I wouldn't do what he said. I do something like this. And so I'd always be trying new things. And I realized like, okay, well, at one point I realized, well, really in business, it's pretty simple. It's marketing, sales, customer service, management, leadership, teamwork development. Those are the elements of every business. So, and for any small business entrepreneur, the two most important things are marketing and sales, period. If you're not, and I define marketing as when people come to your door, like how do I get people knocking on my door or ringing my phone? How do I get people interested in my product or service? Once they show interest, then it changes over to sales. Now you're in a sales mode to see if they're the right client for you or not. And then after they close a deal, now the customer service goes into place. So I just started going organized because I never studied business in school. I didn't have a degree in that. So I was learning this as I was going. And I think that street knowledge was very valuable. And what ended up happening, Howie, is so that the video production company, I ended up growing it. We ended up, and again, producing 27 fitness videos on how to work out on your own home gym. We had those videos back then. If you know Dick's Sporting Goods today.
Yeah, sure.
Well, back then there was a chain called Herman Sporting Goods. You probably
I know
remember
that. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
But most people don't remember that, right? There's 138, I think, Herman Sporting Goods across the country. They were the #1 sporting goods store. And in Herman Sporting Goods was a home gym company called Marcy Fitness Products, Marcy. We ended up licensing Marcy's name, produced 27 fitness videos on how to work out on their home gym, which was the #1 home gym in the country. And we were selling our videos all through the Herman Sporting Goods stores, American Express mailers, and the Sharper Image catalog. So all of a sudden we had this company that grew nationally. Like I had grown that from when I got to college, grew nationally, was very successful. And then this German sporting goods company came over and wanted to buy Marcy. Marcy, when we were with them, grew from a $7 million to a $49 million company. And they were, lots of growth going on. They moved to they were in Ontario, California. They moved to a new manufacturing plant, et cetera, et cetera. So this German sporting goods comes in and buys Marcy. Now, this German sporting goods company you've never heard of, I had never heard of, because they didn't do sexy sporting goods. They did like basketball rims and basketball nets, and like they weren't like Wilson or something like that, or Nike. And then they came to us and said, we want to buy the rights to your videos. And I was like, okay. So sold the rights to my videos. And then I was like, whatever old age, I was 28 years old, and I was like semi-retired. And I was like, well, that was pretty cool. And then because I was known as a successful entrepreneur down in Scarsdale, New York, people had come to me and say, hey, we want to do an adult education course on entrepreneurship. Would you be willing to volunteer your time to teach that course? And I said, sure. And they said, okay, can you put together the course? And I was like, sure. I'd never done that before. And they said, it was like an 8-week course. Can you put together an 8-week course? I was like, sure. And so I put together some course. I had never done that before. And I had 15, 20 people in the class, something like that. And so I taught this 8-week course on how to get your own business going. And at the end, 5 people came up to me and said, hey, can you work with us on growing our business? And I was just like, sure. So all of a sudden I became a consultant. I didn't know what a consultant was, but I now was a consultant, and I'm working with them, helping them grow their businesses, and did that for, a couple of years. And then as I was helping them be successful, they'd be talking to their friends. I have a guy that had a business that was 10, 15, 20 years old and wasn't doing well, and then recommend me to them. He'd say, hey, can you help me turn my business around or grow it? And I was like, sure, I could do that. And so I went in and started analyzing the business, what they had to do. Mostly it was all like marketing and sales stuff that had to be done. And then I got a reputation doing that. And then one of these guys I was working for, he said, well, look, my people need customer service training. Do you do customer service training? I was like, sure, I do that. And so, but the key of an entrepreneur, right? Sell it first, develop it later. So I sold it, and I was like, how do I do a customer service training? And back then there's no internet. So it's not like I could go customer service training. Like I had to go. And I've been reading a lot about customer service and doing that. So again, I had put together my own course, and then all of a sudden I was in the consulting and training business. I didn't know that existed. So, and that's now been the theme from my life since selling that first company, is I've now worked with small businesses, medium and large size businesses all around the world on business growth, basically consulting, training, and development of people. And a lot of it's leadership development now. Sales training was a big part of it over the years, but most of it was leadership development and business growth. So
so I think that's really cool. The way you've kind of put that together is not just sell it first and do it later. I mean, that's what you were getting at, but you never said no to anything. Just I'll figure it out.
Entrepreneur, an opportunity's in front of you, take advantage of it, right?
Exactly. Don't never say no, and just figure it out later. I think that's a great way to look at it. So that's kind of a cool way to go. Very nice, very good.
Yeah, and Howard, that was when at about that time when I was doing that consulting and training, I now found out about BNI. I got introduced to BNI, and then I became a member of BNI, and then I became down in Westchester what was called an assistant director back then. And then I was going to be moving up to where I live now. And I said, hey, and there was BNI as a franchise. I said, is there a franchise in that area? They said, no. And so I was like, I want to get a franchise. And I did. And that was, we've had the franchise up here now for what, 28 years. I've been involved in BNI for about 30 years now. Yeah, about 30 years.
Exactly. That's actually, that's where I was going to go next. It's like, how did BNI come into the picture? And it was just like, kind of like everybody else gets into BNI with. Somebody just asked and said, yeah, come along.
Yeah. Same thing. It was one of those opportunities. And here's the funny part, Howard, is this lady that invited me to BNI. I would probably say, if I remember correctly, probably 6 months. And I said no over and over and over. And she kept asking me, and I look back at it now, I was like, God bless her, because I kept saying no. And she kept telling me how great this group was, these people and whatever. And I was just like, okay. So one time I was like, okay, I'll go. Because I had my consulting training business now. I was like, let me see what this thing is. And I go and I went there with a negative attitude, just like, what is this going to be? It can't be that good, whatever. And I go into the first meeting. By the end of the first meeting, I was like, oh, this is good. Like, this is really good, really well done. And I joined, I think, after that meeting. And then I just kind of, as they say in BNI, I drank the Kool-Aid. I was just like, this is like an amazing organization and what it does. And then since then I've been, got involved and really, when I first got involved in BNI, it was in like 30 or 35 states, only in the United States. And since then, now it's in over 74 countries. So the growth has been amazing over the years to see it happen. Really, really, really amazing.
And you've made a significant impact on the organization in the first place. Also,
I tried to. I mean, besides our region, I've coached a lot of the people in other regions. I've traveled around the world to different regions, and all the way in Japan and Hong Kong and all throughout Europe, India, and done presentations and worked with leadership teams there and executive directors there, and did leadership development with people there. I was the national director for BNI for a little while, and so yeah, it's been really wonderful to be able to travel and meet these people all around the world and what they're doing. And I still get calls today to do some more work on that way. So it's and it's such a wonderful group of people. And I think all entrepreneurs, just a wonderful group who are so hungry and want to learn. And so when you're working with people like that, it makes a big difference. It really does.
Was there anything specific about the meeting or the organization or something that turned you on? You said, well, this is really good. Like what? Yeah,
I think it was a couple of things. I think I went, and it was a very structured business meeting. This wasn't a breakfast club. It wasn't a coffee klatch. It wasn't just people hanging around talking. It was, you went there and there was an agenda. They stuck to it. So you were in a business meeting, and the focus of that business meeting was for you to make more money at your own business. And they had a structured word of mouth marketing way to make that happen. And I had, never heard of anything like this before. I had been doing that kind of thing on my own with people, but there was never a structure to it, right? And Dr. Ivan Meisner, who founded the organization, came up with the structure and just really came up with something that was just amazing to really make that happen. So I think it was that, and then the giver's gain mentality that they talked about. And giver's gain was, look, you're in here to grow your business, right? And in the end, you should come in here with a selfish attitude that I'm here to make money for my business. However, the process, the way that you do that is through giver's gain, which means you're being unselfish. You give to others in the room, and then you hope to get back. Right? There's no quid pro quo. It's just you give, and you give because you have trust and confidence in them. You have relationships with them, and you're basically helping people out. When I tell people is, look, in your BNI people, you have people you care about who are very good at what they do on one hand. On the other hand, you have people in your life, your friends, family, associates, and clients that you really care about. And what you're doing is, when those people you care about need somebody, you want to match them with somebody in BNI. Because when you do that, you know that your friends, family, associates, and clients are going to be well taken care of. They're not going to get ripped off. And it's really wonderful that you made that arrangement and helped two people out. And that's really what it's about. Really what it's about. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So it's a good, I always laugh when, I think back at the time that you came to my chapter. It's a good thing you were as a visitor at my chapter when you showed up. I thought that was very funny. So I sort of tell that story, probably not as good as you do, but we were a little lax maybe in some of the rules. And
well, at that time you weren't getting all the support that you needed, and so the chapter had, just like they do as anything else, you kind of went off track. I remember coming there and kind of being like, what is this group that you're doing here? I know we had that conversation, and then but Howard, we worked together for a good few months and turned it around pretty quickly, right? So it wasn't a matter of the people in the group; it was a matter of just putting structure back in place. And what happens, I think, is that type of thing. When people come to a meeting like that and they're looking to grow their business, and you give them structure, it's literally like a sponge sucking up water. They're just there, and you get them also like they take all this knowledge and they start to go somewhere and go like, oh, because there's so many epiphanies that happen with people. They're just like, oh, I didn't know why that made sense. I didn't know why that made sense, right? And all of a sudden it's like, this makes sense. And all of a sudden it's like you see them start to sit straighter and be stronger and be proud of the chapter, what they're doing. And then all of a sudden they're able to give business to somebody, and that makes you feel so good that you're able to give to somebody, and then you start to get it back. And then it all begins, right? That's the process.
Yeah. So I thought that was great. And there's a little bit of that, a little bit of success breeds a little more success and a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much to have that little spark in the group kind of come everything together, right? So so BNI now, we really emphasize relationships and really getting to know people on almost like a personal level in addition to kind of a business level. So now we got online, all kinds of stuff. So one of the things I was really impressed about is when COVID happened and like nobody had no idea what was going to happen next.
Right.
There was a couple of weeks in that transition time when everybody had to go online. As executive director, what were you thinking? What was going in your head when we had no idea what was going to happen tomorrow, let alone 3
That's a really good question, Howard. That's a really good question, because you go back and we think like, here we're going into something that we've never experienced before. We're hearing about this thing. And I have to give full accolades to the leadership of BNI at that time, because Dr. Ivan Meisner now is the Chief Visionary Officer. The CEO is Graham Weimiller, and Graham did an amazing job, not at that moment, but for months before that, in all the prep, all the research of what was going to happen, where things were going, and they got prepared. And as you know, we were given in like a month, we said, okay, in 2 weeks, we're going to start the process of, by next month, we're all going to be online, every single chapter. Now, understand, and it's hard for people to remember this now, before COVID, there were, thousands of BNI chapters around the world who had never, ever met online. In fact, that was verboten. It was like, no.
Yeah, sure.
Like we only meet in person. Now, all of a sudden, we were taking every single chapter in like 70 countries and saying, you're all going online in like 2 weeks. And it's just like, oh, this is going to go well. And I got to tell you, all things being equal, it went pretty darn smoothly,
I
right?
really did. I
mean,
really impressed.
pretty much like that. It was just amazing to see how it went. And that goes back to Graham and BNI, the BNI Global, the global headquarters, if you want to call it that. He and his team did an amazing job of making that happening, not just in the implementation, the practicality of it, but the planning of it, the strategic of it. Even knowing that we had to do that, none of us, I think, had thought that far ahead, and he had already put that in place and put everything in place. So he did an amazing job bringing us to do that. We were online for what, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years or something like that. And then now we have chapters. Now we offer more. We have chapters that are just online. We have chapters that are just in person, and we have chapters that are what we call hybrid, that are kind of both. So it now has opened up the opportunity for more people to get involved, because some people couldn't make an in-person meeting, maybe because of distance, maybe just because of timing, or whatever it was, and now they can go to an online meeting. And that's worked very well. And I think, that along with the Zoom that we work with has been amazing. So, it's funny how kind of crises like that create, entrepreneurial thinking and create new opportunities.
Sure.
And I can tell you, in my opinion, that if COVID hadn't happened, BNI probably still would not be online today, and would probably be a future thought, like, okay, in 3 to 5 years, we have to start to do something that would be, because it was our mindset. But it kind of forced that issue going forward. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were thinking of it, but nobody had known about it. But I think it made the future come forward, and we've worked it very well. And I think what also it did is it made like companies like Zoom upgrade their technology to a different level in order to handle this. So it made it more practical for all of us. So so it's been amazing now to see that, where you can go and you can even, there's some networks now that are, worldwide, and you can visit different chapters. It's just, it's pretty cool. So it's a pretty cool thing. And so, very nice. Yeah,
that's pretty good. So now so BNI is online or not, or wherever people happen to be. There's lots of, I don't want to say competition, but lots of online, meetings that people would do either on their own or through other organizations and stuff. Is there, what's BNI's added value that the other organizations maybe don't have, or like, where are you thinking future-wise? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I think, when we look at BNI, I think from the beginning, what's made BNI very different is the structured business meeting that we run, which is basically the secrets are in the agenda that we do. It's not just the agenda itself. Anybody can do that, but it's how we do certain things in the agenda and the whys behind each thing that we do. Because you have to understand, you have an organization here that's the largest, most successful referral organization in the world. And if I remember correctly, if you took our number 1, number 2, and number 3 competitor and combined them together, they're not 1/10 of the size of BNI, right? So, and I'm not saying just because you're big, you're better. I'm saying because we're big, we keep going back and relearning. What can we do better? What can we do better? There's so much knowledge in this organization of networking, word of mouth marketing, and referrals on how to really make this work. So really, BNI is not a networking organization. BNI is a referral organization, and it's really what I would consider the leader in referral science. It's about referral science because we now have the data. We have the information to look and say, what does it take to be really successful at networking, word of mouth marketing, referrals? And what does it take to take that knowledge and put it into a meeting and make it work for people on a weekly basis? And so we've been able to pretty much bring that down to a science now, where if you come into BNI, it's, if you do the basics, you're gonna make money at your business. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I hesitate saying that because it's like saying, well, if you join the gym, you'll get in shape. It's like, no, if you join the gym and go in and actually like get on the machines or do the like you have to actually do something when you're in there. And I go to the gym a lot. I've been there and I've seen people come in at 5, 6 in the morning and like sit on the chair and do nothing or talk on their phone and go like, dude, like, what are you doing here this early? Like, it's not going to do. Then they go like, yeah, the gym doesn't work. I'm like, well, you're not doing anything. But if you come in and take advantage and follow what BNI shows you to do, follow the program. If you follow the BNI program, if you fully engage, it's almost a guarantee you will make money at your business in doing that, because we have the science of referrals down now, and no other organization has the knowledge that we have to do that. And a lot of other organizations have been offshoots of BNI. They're what we call BNI, what I call BNI light, right? They've taken what they liked in BNI and so let's do this and let's not do these other things. But they realize most of the things that they don't want to be doing are really sometimes the key factors that make it successful.
Sure.
So yeah, so I think it's that's a big part of it. And I think in the future we're just going to see BNI get better. I think we have like 7 core values in BNI. One of them is called traditions and innovation. And one of the things I really respect about BNI over the years is that we have some incredible traditions, things that we've done for years and years and years, that we know work. And we're always looking to see if we can make them better, but we hold that foundation. But then the second part of this innovation, how do we innovate BNI? How do we make it better? Like going online, having online, hybrid, and in-person chapters. That's an innovation. Things we do in the chapters, we innovate new things that are going to be going forward. So it's always great to see that even though myself and other executive directors, as we're working on our regions to make them better, we know that our global partners, the ones that run the whole organization, they're working on the future for us. So they're coming to say, okay, here's something new we're doing. Here's something new we're doing. It's like, wow, this is great. So it's kind of like our R&D department is coming back to us to say, here's how we're going to do that. And I think that's where when you have a larger organization, like some of the, not like, as I said, we're bigger than so much bigger than our competitors, it allows us to have the resources available to innovate and make things better. So we're not just doing the same things. We're going to lead this industry, for the foreseeable future, because we're not standing still. We're saying, no, we've got to get better. We've got to get better. We've got to get better. And those innovations are about making the future of referrals, the future of networking, the future of word of mouth marketing. We're the ones who are going to lead that and make it better. And those people that are in BNI can see that because they see the effect that it has on their business.
Yeah. And so now, but really comes back to, I mean, we talk about referrals and you should meet you because of whatever and see where the business kind of turns into, but it also comes back to relationships and business relationships. And I always talk about how long in the trainings that we do, so how long did it take from the time you met your spouse to the time you said, I do? And people think, oh, maybe a year, a couple of years, whatever it was. Well, business relationship is really no different, maybe.
Great example. Right? Yep.
Great example. And so now we've got you can develop a relationship by meeting in person. I think that's a great way to, and we encourage that. But now if you got people all over the place and online and stuff, how does that kind of blend in to the whole mix of stuff?
Yeah, it's great. That's again a great point. Great question is, if you have an online chapter, do you form as strong relationships as in person? I think the quick answer is no, not initially, right? Because initially is I'm in person. If I'm in a room with you and there's a bunch of us in the room, we're here, we're pressing flesh together, we're with each other. There's a commitment that we have. We've kind of forgotten about everything outside the room, and we're here with each other, and we're committed for that 90 minutes to pay attention to each other. When I'm at home online, you're a face on the screen.
Yeah.
Right. And there's other things. My cat's walking over my feet, and I'm sitting there, and I got the other screens on, and the phone's ringing. And there's just distractions that happen. So we've worked very hard in BNI that on those online meetings, we've made it so there's a way for people to focus, and we've gotten very creative with the way to continue to build those relationships online with each other to make it a deeper relationship and still feel that type of connection. Again, I think it happens. It just takes a little bit longer. So if I was in a chapter and it took you and I 2 months to develop a really great referral relationship, that now I trust you and I can do that, maybe it'll take a little bit longer online, right? Because we're not seeing each other in person as much, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I think it's definitely going to happen going forward. And we have people kind of bringing together to make that happen. We also encourage those chapters that are online to get together once a month, once every 2 months, and do a social, get together with each other, meet each other in person, see each other that way. Because I think, as human beings, we want to be with other people. And so it's a really important piece when you bring somebody together and you did a networking event, or maybe just one time an in-chapter, meeting itself in person, and did that. It's like you leave there with a whole different level of commitment to those people and what you're doing in terms of being online. But, at the same time, there's opportunities now to bring people into a BNI chapter that may have never happened before, because the online is possible for them. That extra hour or so of, let's say, commuting or the distance wouldn't have been possible for them. Now they can be there. So it creates that opportunity. So I think, like anything else, it comes down to the person engaging in the process. It doesn't matter if it's in person or if it's online. It matters that they engage and they do the things they're supposed to do within the BNI structure. As we show them how to use this thing called BNI, then all of a sudden it's going to make a big difference in terms of if they use it, it makes it happen. Kind of the same example you used the gym before, right? You can be there. It's like, well, okay, but if you're not doing it, it's not going to happen. So the online is working. I can tell you there are chapters that started and thrive online as much or better than those that have been in person starting in COVID, doing millions and millions of dollars worth of business and building that trust and confidence with each other. So one's not, I think, better than the other. It's one, the personality of the person. Do you like being online versus in person? Are you engaging, right? That's the second part of it. Are you doing those type of things? And are you fully using the BNI system to make it work for you?
So if you have, and we have a good example is we have a guy in our chapter. I mean, we're in New York, right? We have a guy from Idaho. And he's got an online kind of business. He could do business anywhere. It doesn't really matter. And he's bringing people to us every week. He's got new people from him. So I think it's an awesome way to do that. And he never would have done anything like that before if we didn't have that opportunity. So all kinds of
pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Yep.
So do you have some stories about maybe relationships that you've had that have developed either online or offline, or, just moving forward? We're all about relationships. So give me a story about, where you were involved in a relationship that developed into business for you, for somebody else, like all this stuff that kind of comes together.
I'll tell you the biggest referral I ever received from BNI. It was about the second or third year I had started BNI up in my region here in the Mid Hudson Valley. And there was a gentleman who's worked, as a banker, like a mortgage banker for a bank in the area. And this is going back to, when all the banks, this is going back like 20 something years ago. And you remember back then, all the banks were merging then, right? And there was, they don't have it anymore. Fleet Bank was one of those banks. And Fleet Bank had called this gentleman and asked him to come on as a merger trainer. So basically banks merge, they need to bring on extra trainers from outside the bank to help do all the merging, like we train this new bank on their systems, right? And they write they have all the training program. You don't write it, you just go and deliver it. So anyway, they called him and he said, well, no, I'm working full time. I can't do that. But talk to Frank. Frank does training development, whatever. So it's fine. They call me to do merger training with them. And that's not really the type of thing that we did. But what did I say? Sure, we can do that.
Of course you can do it. Yeah, of course.
But I had 3 or 4 trainers at that time. And I had 4 trainers. 3 of them came from banking. One of them wasn't. So I went in and I convinced I convinced them to, they only used to work with one other national training company. So I ended up convincing them to use my company as their second one, even though I use a lot of other individuals. So they ended up using myself and 4 of my people, and we were supposed to go in for 3 months. We ended up working with them for 18 months, and my company made almost $500,000 from that one account.
Wow.
One referral made me about $500,000. Yeah, it just kind of helped me get my business to a different level at that point. Then we started training a lot of other banks and going into it, right? So, and that was based on referral that this one gentleman gave me. And he just thought it was, well, Frank, they'll hire Frank. I turned it into much more than that. But
Sure.
it was, probably the most profitable referral that I've ever received in BNI. This guy gave it to me, and I turned something that would have maybe made me like $30,000, and it became $500,000. So, and that's about, building that relationship and trust. And he told me, he recommended, he said, Frank, I see you do training and speaking all the time. You're fabulous at what you do. They'll absolutely love you. So that worked out really well. So I think that's the key. Like you're saying, Howard, it's all about the relationship. We said before, if it's online or in person, it's really about engaging in the system, but engaging in relationship building with those people. Because again, a qualified referral in BNI, my definition of a qualified referral is, if I refer you out, it means I have already spoken with that person and they said yes, they'd be willing to have a phone call or an in-person appointment with you to discuss business. So basically, if I give you a referral, it means somebody's waiting for your phone call. I've talked to them, told them how wonderful you are, and they're looking to have a conversation with you. Right. But for me to do that, that means I had to say some pretty wonderful things about you to do that. That means I'm putting a piece of my reputation on the line. Right. So if I'm going to do that, that means we better have a pretty good relationship, because if you don't deliver, you're not just hurting your reputation, you're hurting mine. So we have to make sure we're doing that. And that's where the relationship, the trust and confidence come in, that BNI members are willing to do that for other BNI members, because they know they're going to deliver. They know when they refer them out that it's going to come back to them in a very positive manner and build their credibility even more with their friends, their family, their associates, and their clients.
To get some success and stuff too. So what are the next? So now we're in, I don't want to say post-COVID, or, we're online. We've got a bunch of moving parts here. What are the next? What are the challenges and opportunities in our area kind of moving forward for you or for the
in BNI or in business in general? You're talking
in
about
business? Oh, that's actually, let's do both. Yeah, I was thinking BNI, but I think business in general is important too.
Well, I think from a BNI perspective, it's all about getting people back. Understanding that, first letting them know you can be online or you can be in person, and then getting people really back to understanding the power of networking, how that works, and how to build it into referral. Because I think people, got really isolated when they were in COVID and doing whatever else. So now it's kind of like a restart in going forward. So I think that's the thing we have to get out, is understanding, like, we have to, let's pull people back together and let people know that we're here for them. And that's really important. How powerful it is and important it is to build your network now before something happens, right? It could happen to you personally. It could happen in our economy. It could happen in your industry. But if you have a network in place, so if something all of a sudden drops, right? If our economy drops more, like we're not in the greatest economy now, but if it drops again, if something else happens, whatever that is, that you have a network, a safety net that people who will support you. Right now, if let's say the economy drops and your business isn't doing as much and you come into BNI, then it's not a bad thing, but you understand you're coming in when you're at the low. So it's going to take some while to kind of people build your relationship, get to know you, and build you back up. If you have that safety net in place, that network in place beforehand, instead of going so low in that drop, you may go down a little bit, but it's going to be less. Because you have a group of people willing to work for you and you willing to work for them already. So that's a really important piece, is to make sure that people understand the power of a network, of having a network with deep relationships is the most important thing that you can do. And I think, post-COVID, in terms of business going forward, I don't think there's much difference than before. I think it's just a matter of, hey, we've gone through something that we've never went through before. It could happen again. Who knows what the government's talking about doing now in the next year or so, and whatever that means. And I think we're adapted to it very well. But I think it does show in business in general how important, especially when you do both business locally and regionally, how important local and regional relationships are. I'm a big believer that if you're a member of BNI, you should also be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. we're two different organizations. We don't compete with each other. We're there for two different purposes. And I think the best combination somebody can have is be a member of your local chamber and be a member of BNI and bring those two together. For yourself personally, you're going to be able to work your network so much better. We'll be able to teach you things in BNI that you can work at the chamber at. You'll be able to engage more in the chamber. The chamber is going to give you more what we call breadth of network. You're going to meet many, many more people in what you're doing. And BNI will give you a little breadth, but lots of depth. Depth means deeper relationships who people are going to give you regular referrals. And BNI basically say, look, if you're not making money, something's wrong. This is an organization that's focused on referrals and focused on helping you with your sales revenue. The chamber is there to help you get exposure. They're not taking responsibility for your bottom line, right? We're helping to make you more focused on that bottom line by creating top line sales and going forward. So I think that's really important for every business owner to really get focused on. I need to develop greater relationship with those people around me. And for those small businesses who don't have a big marketing budget, that's why BNI can work so well, because you're going to build a strategic word of mouth marketing team around you who can go out and bring you business without having to do, if you don't have the budget to advertise. And I'm a big believer in marketing, by the way, radio, television, direct mail, web, Google, whatever else it is. I think every marketing medium is valuable as long as it's giving you the return on investment. But we know statistically through surveys that small business owners will say one of the best ways for me to grow my business is word of mouth marketing. And that's why I think BNI works so well for them.
And that's where, and that goes way back. I mean, even before BNI, I mean, people talk about
absolutely.
Too. So cool.
Yeah, so but it's a really good point, Howard, is even though, Dr. Meisner, founded BNI and put the structure of this organization of word of mouth marketing, networking, and referrals, right? It's not like he invented that. What he did is he took things that were naturally happening over the years and saying, you know what, we can do this more effective, and brought in and put a structure to it. So now you could strategically plan, you can put into your budget, this is how much money we're going to make through referrals this year. This is going to do whatever else, versus before, it just kind of happened by happenstance. Now he put a science to it, and we've been perfecting that science now over, about 30 years. So
yeah, cool. Very good. So of all the decades and of all the businesses and of all the things that you have from college to today, and all the things that you kind of done and the successes that you've had kind of along the way, how much would you attribute to just hard work, hours or whatever, and the teaching, learning and all that stuff? And how much maybe to a little bit of luck?
I think if you're going to be successful in business, hard work is just part of the program. Whatever you define as hard work, right? So hard work is part, you're going to be putting in the hours, you're going to have to be learning, you're going to have to go through, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, you're going to learn from those mistakes and going forward. And as you're going forward, it's about the mindset of an entrepreneur if I think you get trained as you're doing it, either by reading or learning or just naturally, organically, of recognizing opportunities that are there. When you recognize an opportunity, that could be defined as luck, right? Because maybe it was the right timing. All of a sudden something happened, it was there, and you recognize something somebody else didn't recognize, right? So you can be lucky that things came across your path, but really I think what happened is luck most of the time is a combination of strategy and hard work put together. And all of a sudden, and strategy and hard work is fine, but it's strategy and hard work with your eyes are open to see opportunities, and you're going, oh, there's something, because that luck that was in front of you, to 10 other people, they would have seen the same thing in your same situation and not seen it as an opportunity. But for some reason, you saw it as an opportunity and say, well, that was lucky you saw that. Yeah, maybe it was lucky because 10 other people didn't see that. Or maybe it was you trained and strategized enough and recognized opportunities enough that you see things other people don't see. So you've been trained to see that. And I think that's a really important piece. But the more you go out there and work, the more you go out there and strategize, the more you go out there and recognize and educate yourself, it's funny how all of a sudden luck comes more into the picture, right? So how you define luck. So it's one of those type of things that if you put the work in, if you go in there, it's going to happen. But I'm a big believer is working hard. But as I'm working hard, I'm always working on how can I work less, make more? How can I do this more efficiently and effectively, right? So I can be more productive and therefore more profitable. So I'm always looking at how can I be more efficient at this? How can I be more effective at that? How is it possible to put in less time and get greater results? And to me, that's a really exciting part about business is if you can start to put those process and systems in place and it's just like, wow, I'm just making this easier for myself now. Howard, I look at being an entrepreneur is really, what really being an entrepreneur is, it's a legal way. Everybody's business is basically a legal way to print money. That's really what it is. That's it. It's about having a printing press that produces money. And in your business, whatever your business is, that's the machine. And then you feed into that your work, and then you start producing dollars on the other end. And your job is to maintain that machine. How do I make this machine better, stronger, more efficient, more productive? And then maybe you have 2 machines and 3 machines and 4 machines. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's a legal printing press for money, right? In terms of that, and whatever your process is in doing that. Now, what you do with that money, if you reinvest it in the business, if you help charitable organizations, if you provide a better lifestyle for your family and the community, that's all up to you what you're doing. But it's giving you a way, it's giving you an opportunity to make a difference in your life and in the lives of those people around you.
Sure, that's a great way to look at it. And also, I think maybe you recognize those opportunities today, if whatever the opportunity comes today, that you wouldn't have recognized a year or 2 ago, just because you didn't learn enough or have that experience to get you there. So
yeah, I think experience is the key word there. Experience is the key word. It's one of those things that you ain't going through that. Absolutely.
Yeah, those ones like even it was in another group this morning. They think when the student's ready, the master appears, even though the master was there all along. You just didn't see it.
Timing, right? Just timing.
Exactly. Well, is there anything else you wanted to share a little bit about what's going on we didn't talk about?
Well, I think it's just, for me, I think the key for people, and just talking about general success in people in their lives, I'm a big believer in, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you want your business, I think you mentioned at the beginning, you want your business to provide you the lifestyle that you want. Mm-hmm. So the best advice I can give to any entrepreneur is you have to be in control of your business. Don't let your business control you. Right? Set it up and think of what is the business you want to create? What's that vision? And then what's the work you're willing to go into put in to go there? Now, I've had many people over the years when I've consulted with them on their business say, like, I said, what are you willing to make business success? Anything. I'll do anything. And I was like, when you say anything, tell me that. No, really, I'll put any work in to do that. And I kind of chuckle like, okay, so we're going to put a plan together. And it's going to be, you're going to work 7 days. We're going to work 7 days a week. I'm going to get you up at 5 a.m. and we're going to work till 11 o'clock. Well, I can't do that. I can't work more than 5 days a week, and I can't work more than 8. So all of a sudden, like, okay, so what does anything mean to you then, right? Yeah. And I think, it's not a bad thing. It just matter, be realistic with yourself. What is the work you're willing to put in, the time, the energy, the risk you're willing to take to get your business to be successful or more successful, and then put a plan in around that and going forward. And then you have to see if you're adaptable to that. Because sometimes some of your plans will be like, look, you're going to put in a lot more work than that. You have to work different days than that, or wherever it's going to be going forward versus like making it happen. I kind of go back, I think of when I first started my businesses, like I said, I was working 100 to 110 hours a week. I was working 7 days a week. I was working every day. I remember one time I was talking to a guy, I was bouncing at a bar, and he knew that I also owned a martial arts studio. And back then he's like, so do you take a day off? I said, yeah, I have Sunday off. And he's like, oh, you have Sunday? I said, yeah, I have, he goes, what do you do on Sunday? I said, well, I get up. I said, I have a kids class at 9 o'clock. Then I have an adult class at 10 o'clock. And then, I'm done by like 11:30, 12 o'clock. He's like, that's not a day off. You just said you would teach for like 3 hours. I was like, oh, that's a day off. So, like, I'm usually working 18 hours. I'm only working 3 hours. That's a day off. Trust me on that one. And he's just like, Frank, that's not a day off, right? So it's like your own mentality of what does that mean, and going forward. So it's one of those type of things that, you have to be willing to do what you want to do. Some people are willing to do that and going forward, now, I've been in business now, I'm not 18 anymore. And I don't want to work like that anymore. For me, I don't want to put in 100 hours a week. I don't want to put in those many hours a week. I want to enjoy my life a bit more. I love working. I love what I do. I get up early every day and I'll put in the hours I need to. What's the old entrepreneurial saying is I used to work hard, but I only work a half a day now. I only work 12 hours a day.
12 hours,
more than that, right? Yeah. So that's everything. So I think it's just, if you have your own business, and you really wanted to develop it, think of efficiencies and effectiveness, right? Think of how you can work less and make more and develop a plan, or have somebody help you to develop a plan, to grow your business in the way that you want to with the time and sacrifice you're willing to put in. Once you can do that, then you really own your business and you can make it go where you want it to.
Yeah, I think a key thing there is ask for help. And never ending ways to find help, either with people that live and in person, or YouTube videos that we didn't have 20 years ago.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Very cool. Very cool. So Frank, this has really been awesome. And just for everybody, just to remember, it's money that make those gears turning for your business or for your organization. Make sure your money is working for the most efficient way for you. Thanks for being here, Frank. This has been awesome.
Great to be here. Thanks for the conversation, and I love being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks.